about Ole Miss being at 9-2. They sort of have the same feel as a Wisconsin, as a Iowa. When you get to the end and you realize they're 1 win away from getting to a 10-win season, pretty amazing, because at times, because they play close games, because they play exciting games, you sort of lose just how good they've been with only 2 losses on the season.
So Ole Miss, Egg Bowl coming up Thanksgiving night against Mike Leach and the Bulldogs. Mississippi State been in and out of the rankings over the course of the year. Let's see who is number 8. And it's the Baylor Bears, up 3 spots. Baylor has to have things fall right, but Dave Aranda's team can still get into the Big 12 championship game with a win and an Oklahoma State win, Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, that's very realistic for them. And Dave Aranda's team, first of all, one of the greatest turnaround stories in 2021. You know, you could make a debate between what Jim Harbaugh's done up to this point and what Dave Aranda's doing at Baylor. A chance to get realistically to 10 wins, and then they have to sit there and watch Bedlam. And as you said, man, they're Oklahoma State win away and a win away themselves for getting a shot to win a Big 12 championship. After where they were last year, man, that's an impressive effort by those players and by Dave Aranda and that staff.
I'm really interested to see which of the 2 likely teams is going to check in at number 7 right here, 1 spot ahead of Baylor. Will it be Notre Dame? No, it's Oklahoma State. I wondered if Oklahoma State, by virtue of the fact that not only have they won 10 games, their defense has allowed 1 touchdown in the last 4 games. One of the other touchdowns they allowed, the offense gave up on a scoop and score.
But the thing is about Notre Dame being above them, Notre Dame's almost done. So when I look at, listen, top 7 to me are very much in play big time, but they've got a chance with many more opportunities to jump Notre Dame and be very much right in the mix at the end of this.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame, who we think will probably wind up 6, we'll see that in just a second. They probably need Baylor to win the Big 12 and everybody else to have 2 losses. From what you've seen so far, what's your reaction, Kirk?
I think where Oklahoma State sits, with 2 big games still ahead of them potentially, if they are able to knock off Oklahoma and get a shot to win a Big 12 championship, it really would be exciting to see what happens ahead of them. I think Cincinnati, depending on where they are, I have no idea where Cincinnati is this week, but depending on where they are, there could be a fun debate there for number 4. I don't even think Cincinnati could be in that debate, honestly, Reese. I think Cincinnati, when all the dust settles, I think Cincinnati could be up at 3, and the potential debate could be the Notre Dame and an Oklahoma State possibly, or maybe an Oklahoma, maybe a Baylor, the Big 12 champ in Notre Dame, and possibly if Alabama loses closely, that could be the debate there for 4. I think Cincinnati's going to be okay in the top 3.
It certainly looks that way. They have to finish out, obviously. They got a game against East Carolina this weekend and then the American Championship game against Houston. But I agree with you 100%. If they win out, I mean, I think it's looking good for Luke Fickell's team. Luke Fickell's going to join us coming up in just a few minutes. Okay, let's have a look now and see what the top 6 looks like.
Let's get 1 off the board because we know what 1 is.
Well, we know 1 is going to be that red and black G. Hunker down, clean old-fashioned hate coming this weekend against an overmatched Georgia Tech team. I think it's like a 35-point spread. Dogs are going to go to the SEC championship game undefeated for the first time. The first time they've gotten there with a perfect record. At number 2. That's what we expected.
Yeah.
Kirk, did you expect? I expected this. Did you?
Yeah, I just think that they've been trending in a really good direction. Their defense, guys, since those first 3 games, only given up an average of 15 points a game over the last 7 or 8 games. So I think it's become a more complete team. Their offense is terrifying. When they're clicking, it's an exciting offense, and everybody keeps talking about it. The Ohio State offense against the Georgia defense would be must-see TV if we're lucky enough to potentially get that in the championship. A lot of football to be played until then, but that not shocked there at 2 this week.
There are a couple of pass rushers who reside in Ann Arbor, Michigan, who would like to derail those plans come Saturday, just after 12 o'clock Eastern time. Just behind the Buckeyes at number 3. Alabama slips a spot, Joey. Alabama has played more close games than they're accustomed to playing, but with the exception of the A&M game, they've found ways to win. But Ohio State surged past them now.
Yeah, this is not a surprise. Watching what Ohio State did against number 7 in the country, that offense is absolutely amazing. And I think Kirk's right. I think more impressive than what they did on offense was the fact that they held Kenneth Walker III to 26 yards rushing. And that was the question mark about this football team. And the only reason that they haven't been a consistent team this season is because on the defensive side. So now the defense playing the way it is, they look like a number 2 team in the country. And Alabama, once again, is offensively as good as anyone in the country. But they're giving up way more points and way more plays than we're used to seeing that defense give up.
Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, not much of a surprise. 1, 2, 3.
Here we go.
Now at number 4, every week when Cincinnati moves up a notch, they set a record for the highest ranked team outside one of the Power 5 conferences. Of course, they are headed to the Big 12 in the future. But at the moment they're in the American, what we don't know, the Bearcats move up. Number 4. And they do.
Oh!
How about that?
History has been made. Cincinnati at the moment is sitting with the last spot. Alabama and Georgia still have to play.
So you got
really good spot for Cincinnati.
First thing, they took care of business. They looked dominant against SMU. We've been waiting for this, right? We've been waiting for them to put it all together. So they handled that. Now you look at your ranking, it's hard not to go, look at the possibilities. They're going to play each other. Michigan's behind me, I know now. Michigan plays Ohio State. There's a lot of things for Cincinnati to look at and be happy about.
There are, and even in the scenario where Alabama beats Georgia and both go,
I agree.
There's still a spot. There's still a spot in there for Cincinnati because Ohio State and Michigan play this weekend. One of them going to be knocked off course. Number 5, Michigan. So Michigan is number 5, and that leaves at number 6. Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Only a game against Stanford, which is having a poor season right now. Irish expected to go into the clubhouse at 11-1. Hope that things fall their way to make the playoff once again. So, Joey, what do you think here? Any kind of big surprises to you? Is this going to appease more of the masses than the previous rankings have?
I think so. Not a surprise. And I think that teams like Oregon getting smashed helps out the committee. Wake Forest moving back helps out the committee. I think the only thing that gets interesting now moving forward is, let's say Cincinnati handles their business, the Alabama-Georgia thing plays out. Does Oklahoma State have a path? Let's say they beat Oklahoma pretty good, this weekend. And then let's say they get Baylor, which again is a top 10 team. So Oklahoma State could add 2 top 10 wins to their resume to finish this thing off. And that would make this an interesting conversation for the committee moving forward if they can pull that off and be impressive while doing it.
Yeah, Joey, I think the biggest thing that we've learned tonight is that Cincinnati, with 2 games left, and especially next week with Houston, we just talked about how Houston is gaining momentum and playing with confidence and a dangerous team. I think the committee will really respect that game if Cincinnati is able to win it. I think Cincinnati is in a really good spot to win their next 2, regardless of what happens around them, and I think they'll be in. I think it's just debatable about whether they get up to 3 or if they stay at 4, no matter what happens. So that's big that they're at 4 now. I thought maybe you might see them have to continue to wait until they beat Houston in the final week of the year, if they do win that game. But, David, I think this is great news for Luke Fickell and the Bearcats. Now they just got to hold serve, and they got to keep winning games.
Which is obviously easier said than done. So you think even if Oklahoma State runs the table, Alabama beats Georgia, Ohio State wins out, you think under that scenario Cincinnati's still in?
Yeah, give me that scenario again. You threw a lot at me there. Alabama beats
Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma. Oklahoma State beats Baylor. They're a Big 12 champion. Alabama beats Ohio State, or beats Georgia, They're an SEC champion. Ohio State wins the Big 10 with 1 loss. Where is Cincinnati then?
I would put Alabama at 1. I would put Ohio State, if you're saying they won out, I would put them at 2. Georgia would be at 3. And the debate, as you would know, would be Cincinnati and a Big 12 champion Oklahoma State. And I think the unbeaten record and the way they finished against SMU and potentially Houston, I think Cincinnati would go in at number 4.
And you still have things could change because of those level of wins that David's referring to if Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma for that matter, were able to get them. But right now, there's a little bit of a gap between them. There's, Cincinnati is in the top 4, Oklahoma State's 7, Oklahoma's 10. So at this moment, up to this point in the season, the committee has a higher regard where Cincinnati is.
But you played You
I
play
know.
those teams right there. I mean, you play two top 10 teams in the next 2 weeks.
It's going to
that
close
gap's
the gap.
going to close quickly.
It will close. It will close. But at the moment, I think I'd rather be ahead than sitting behind.
Yes.
You know, that's where the Bearcats are. We'll see what Luke Fickell thinks about that. Cincinnati head coach is going to be gracious enough to join us.